Alright guys, this is the Omni-Crab. I'm finally back. I got sick and my voice just went completely out, so I wasn't able to record for the longest time. But now I'm back, and I'm here to make the most important video first. I've got so many videos planned. Be ready for all of those. But for right now, the most important thing I can do is tell you who to buy, in what order, what importance, who's the best, who you should rank up in this bounty hunt lineup. I gotta say, I quite like it, although that's mostly because I almost don't have any of these guys. So, what order to start in? I think I'm gonna go worst to best. So, worst is definitely Zio. You definitely want to get this guy last. His description is literally all he does. He just stuns you, gives you magic weakness and bane. As a cursor, I actually really love that. That means as long as he can get you denied and keep you denied, he can destroy you with dots and weakness. That's great synergy. But in the meta, just a denier like this just really has no place in it. He just really can't do anything on his own because like you've got to cleanse. The meta is so gridlocked. But I think for a beginner, this is a really good monster because not only can he deny and then you can attack, but then he can tear them up with dots with weakness. I don't know, maybe you use him with a monster for increased damage output, but the thing is, there's just not too much you can do with this monster, and he's just the least viable. He's definitely not a bad monster per se. He could be a decent war pick to go first to stun, but he's really basic. He's following the trend that they were doing for a little bit, where they were just making random deniers with just a few dots and calling it a day. And there's a lot of monsters with stun immunity in the meta, especially in the beginner's meta, so even for them, he's not the most viable. He's the last guy on the list for sure. Second would have to be Chronobite. Weirdly enough, this is a very popular thing. Right now, there's just a lot of very poor deniers. Now, this guy himself, I actually think is pretty great. He can deny you with Fear and Time Stop, 2 dots with near no immunities. They're trying to give Fear immunity out now, but still it's very rare, and none of the monsters that have Fear immunity are actually good, so even then it's still pointless. And Time Stop, no one's immune to Time Stop, so that's pretty great. And he just uses Soft Denial Blind, so even if he can't chain deny you, which he probably can, he can give you the Soft Denial Blind, which will probably counter you even more. They're both just basic deniers that can't do much in a meta. They can't. I think Chronobite can cleanse, so Chronobite is actually better. But at the end of the day, they're both in the same kind of category. 2 deniers that can't really stand in the meta too much. He's a dark monster, which instantly puts him on a watch list. Like, light pierce monsters just still destroy him. It's just not his time. But he's a pretty decent war monster because no one's really immune to him, and he does have a cleanse move. A denier with a single cleanse move, not an extra turn, is hard to use, but it's definitely better than a denier without. So for that reason, he's above Zio. Zio is a cursor denier with stun, but there's a lot of stun immunity and a lot of immune to torture. He's higher because he can cleanse and chain deny a lot better. Then I've got Emerus, because this guy is just... And then I have Emerus above those two because, surprise, surprise, another denier. All right? So she's just another basic denier. But the thing that puts her above them is the fact that she has amazing dots. Like, he can chain deny, but that's it. He has no dots. And he can destroy you with Bane and magic weakness, but his denial is, like, really poorly picked. And then you've got Emerus, who can not only freeze all, but she can do nanovirus and toxins, 2 of the most powerful dots to have, period, to all enemies. She can apply guard down, so it's got some synergy with all the guard down haters we're getting right now. Like, so many tortures and plus freeze, AoE freeze, guard down so that your denials and tortures aren't missing, and like toxins and nanovirus in synergy, especially against all the light monsters in the meta, is super powerful. I've got to say, I like this one the most, and I'm gonna check out all their traits real quick just to give you a general idea. But I want you to remember that those three monsters that I showed you are the last ones you want to get. They all can't really do too much of anything on their own. They're just basic deniers, but there's, still some merit to them. So Emerus is immune to control. That is also pretty great. So an immune to control denier, that definitely already puts her above them. I think Chronobite is immune to torture. I don't want to miss him. Let me find him. I could have sworn he was season 1. Chronobite. I know he's a galactic monster. I'm so bad at finding things. Right here. So yes, he is trait immune to torture. So immune to torture and immune to control, they've both got some pretty powerful immunities. And then the last one was Zeo, right here. He is immune to curse and tough. So yeah, definitely in that order. So the 3 worst people here are people who can only do basic denial. So the last ones you want to get are Zeo, and then Chronobite, then Emerus. All right? Make sure Zeo is on the last of your list. He's pretty poor. So now we're going to get into the pretty decent monsters. So, second up, and this is, you got to remember, I feel like I'm confusing myself with this more than anything, but I'm going over the worst to the best. So then we've got Tricky Trickster. I think one good thing about him is that he's in the Citizens book. So for things like Boss Direct's Era Saga, which is like impossible to beat because there's no good citizen monsters, you'll have an attacker. I think just that alone makes him decently worth at least getting. Now for his skills itself, it's kind of iffy because he's a water and dark attacker, right? A water attacker in the light meta is absolutely devastating to all the fire monsters in the light and fire pierce meta. But then again, he goes around and stabs himself in the forehead with his dark element because he's also a dark monster, which means that he can destroy the fire part of the light and fire meta, but the light part of the light and fire meta destroys him. And since they have pierce, but he doesn't, that already kind of makes him unusable in the high meta. But he's definitely got, you could definitely pull it off just from him being a strong water attacker alone. So definitely worth it. But remember, any pierce monster is going to destroy him. And his skills are kind of weird. He does damage reduction, shield block, half healing, and negate healing. Those are all, like, I'd rather him do random negative effects because those are all as useless as it can get. Shields is not a thing in the meta. Damage reduction is so pointless. Like, it's nice when you land damage reduction, but it really doesn't change the course of anything. Like, you're going to be fighting a ton of light monsters. If you land damage reduction on them, they're still going to kill you because of your poor elements. And then half healing and negate healing, if he had reverse healing, then there'd be merit to him. Reverse healing is extremely powerful, and it is King Autumn in the meta. But the fact that he doesn't have tortures, I think he does have nightmares, but it's not showcased here. The fact that he only halves your healing and negates healing instead of just doing the bare minimum of reversing your healing and turning it against you, which is a very powerful mechanic. He settles for less. Just makes him a really unoptional monster. So I think he's got some usability in the water element, but he gets screwed over in the dark department. He's a strong attacker, but at the end of the day, all the stats from the old eras are being outdated by a lot. So raw damage output doesn't mean anything anymore. You have to have more than just raw damage output, and sadly, that's all this guy has. Plus, as an attacker, he doesn't even have a lot of dots or good random negative effects. He just has bad negative effects. So definitely get him, and then all these bad deniers. Next one on the list, slightly better, I'd have to say, for sure, Rack Shrieker. Now, he suffers from the exact same problem of amazing metal element, which is even better than the water element, because the water element counters the light and fire meta, so you can destroy all the fire monsters. But the thing is, it's a light meta, and then it's a light and fire meta. So it's light first, almost every monster. Because even the ones that aren't light and fire, that you're trying to counter, like Serpentex, Cherub Cupid, and Elvira, Even the other OP monsters are still just light monsters, meaning Galvanus, uh, Uriel, Light Voltaic. So what you want more than you want the water element for attacking is metal. So metal is the absolute strongest element you can have because it counters almost all of the meta. And that this guy has. So he absolutely destroys them with his high damage output. He hits like a truck. So even while outdated, his stats are still going to be high. Although, as I said, always keep in mind that raw damage output gets outdated fast. And he's already old. So you got to keep that in mind. But that is absolutely going to destroy a lot of the light monsters because he's at least newer than them. So his stats are still super high. Now, on the flip side of the coin, the light meta that he destroys him because he's a dark monster. So it's kind of tick for tack, but I honestly think it's worth it because he'll definitely instant kill with how high his raw damage output is. And he's pretty decent. He does a lot of self buffing attacking, and it's not the kind where it's like attack and then give yourself double damage. It's like the kind where you're like it'll say space armor or something, and it'll be like damage protection, double damage, precision, and then you'll have an insane metal damage or a high metal AoE. That's the kind of attacker this guy is. Definitely not the best, but I'd rather have double damage and damage protection than half healing and shield block. Those are completely useless. At least this has some usability. So Vrak Shrieker is a pretty strong pick there. Definitely worth getting, but only after the rest of the guys. Because as worth it as they're getting, I think the big problem with Tricky Trickster and Vrak Shrieker is that they just have the major flaw of being dark monsters without Pierce or Cold Blood. So I can't recommend them for the high meta, but they're definitely strong war picks. Then you've got Urchinian. This guy is from the last season, the last bounty hunt. And as always, the last bounty hunt monster will always cost the most, even if they're not good. So get this guy if you decide that it's worth it, but he's definitely worth this point on the list. So Urchinian. I found out. So he was a pretty decent cold blood denier, right? And he's got trait immune to torture, but he can only deny single. So that alone would have put him lower than both of those attackers on the list. But the thing that saves him is the fact that he actually makes for a pretty great attacker. You can go to this YouTuber named Abrago's channel. He has great displays of using Urchinian as an attacker. It's a really fun thing to use, and it works out in wars. I've done it. So for the same reason that Tricky Trickster is good, Urchinian is better because he's a water attacker without the flaw of being a dark monster. So he can really tear apart monsters. He's got boiling and drowned along with cold blood freeze attacks. And then he's got a self-apply cold blood. He doesn't have cold blood unless you attack or apply it. But that alone, a cold blood water attacker in the fire meta puts him in a pretty good position. He's not screwed over by his elements, which is a very popular thing with monsters who could counter it. Like whenever they give you an OP metal monster, they also give it dark. Like Shadonia is great metal, but she's also a dark monster. So there's a lot of balancing going on. Luckily, he's kind of left out. His damage output is low, with like a low AoE and a moderate AoE being his best AoEs. But you can definitely compensate for that with good runes. I think he's a pretty worth it war pick to rank up. Hopefully from last season you already had him at like rank 3. Check out Abrago's channel if you really want to see him used as an attacker. If you've never heard of it, it's super fun to see. But yeah, definitely in that order. Definitely worth it, but he's most expensive, so you really got to weigh whether you want to spend the most tokens on him or you want to distribute it more evenly. So next up on the list is Sparkus. He's an amazing monster that I've been dying to get, man. So keep in mind that as a Doomsday monster, his health stat is going to be pretty low. He's going to be really slow compared to all the new monsters and their increased stats. But it's one of those things you kind of have to use as worth it. This guy's been one of the best war picks. You see him in every single war. He is a taunt thunder monster with by its own. A taunt thunder monster is super great. Thunder is always lacking in good picks, so to have a taunt monster in there is great on its own. But not only that, he is a taunt mega taunt status caster monster. So just like Mermodis, just like all these other guys, he'll start off with Mega Taunt, and even if you cleanse that away, he's still got Taunt, so he's got great synergy with Taunt Dodge area monsters. Only thing with that is the fact that it's kind of hard to set him up with Dodge area monsters because he starts with Mega Taunt, and you know if you lean into the Mega Taunt and your allies don't have Dodge area, then when they cleanse away, they can attack them. But if you lean into Dodge area, when they cleanse away, when you have that Megaton to begin with, they can just do an AoE and destroy him. So it's definitely got some counters, but it's still one of the most OP and hard to like get around mechanics unless you have Pierce or Cold Blood. Plus his moves are pretty good. He does Shock, which counters all of the extra turn monsters in the meta. There's a whole lot. He does total damage reduction, which is it's neither here nor there. It's whatever, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Like if you can land a total damage reduction or even a major damage reduction on a Cherub Cupid, I guess it's a win. But the big thing is he can do healing to his entire team, which is always just an amazing thing to have on a top monster, healing capabilities, because then you've got sustainability for not just yourself, but your whole team, which it's a much better to have it for your whole team because with the amount of Pierce monsters in the meta, a Megaton monster who can only do things for themselves unless they're a permanent Megaton monster, is pretty useless. Because once you fight a Pierce monster, that Megaton monster is basically just another ally. So having them also have support capabilities is really great. They also have random elemental protections with those healings. That is kind of just a byproduct. Maybe you get lucky, maybe you don't, but I can't advertise that as a good mechanic. Plus, he's got the banner trait, which is always amazing for a tank. So yeah, Sparkus is so worth it. Definitely pick him up. Even better than Sparkus is a monster that I don't know why they work so well, but people really like them. I think he gets screwed over by his trait, being a dark monster, which is just like Tricky Trickster, just like Rack Shrieker, where one element is good, but the other element is really bad and countered by the meta. But either way, anticipation monsters are really rare in the meta when the meta is so full of extra turn monsters. He is a anticipation monster that can not only give you nightmares, which means as you do your extra turns, you'll lose stamina even quicker, so you won't be doing infinite extra turns, but he can also give shock, which is great for shutting them down. So if you give shock to an extra turn monster, it means they can't do extra turns. So both of these monsters are really good for having shock capabilities, and he's just got high damage output. It's really just in his raw damage output, which is why he's a good attacker. It's definitely going to get outdated, but for right now, it's a very powerful mechanic. And then the one I got to suggest you get the number one pick this bounty hunt is for once the bounty hunt monster itself, Lorunion. Onion. I just call him Onion. He's definitely one of the ugliest monsters possible, but he's actually great because the Abyssal monster's stats are so much higher that he's going to have insane stats, so you can easily get him at a high rank. But not only that, Abyssal monsters at the cost of their high rank are almost impossible to rank up. There's no natural way to get cells. There's no rank up Sarava dungeon, so you just have to grind out an event. And in the bounty hunt is the easiest way to grind out a ton of an Abyssal monster's elements. So to be able to get a high rank, at least rank 3, Onion out of this event, through grinding for him is really great. He's a metal attacker cursor with trample and total blind. Really, he just speaks for himself. Just the fact that he is a metal monster, you'll be able to get high rank with these increased stats. Just puts him in a league of his own. He's going to be an amazing war pick, and I've got to suggest you get him more than anyone else. So to go from greatest to least, get Lorunion first, then Enhanzor, then Sparkus, then Urchinian, then Frax Shrieker, then you can get whoever else you want after. Tricky Trickster, he's got some viability, but I don't think he's any more viable than all these weird deniers. So that is my ranking of these guys. And I will say Mouserk is a very, very powerful bounty hunt monster. If you're thinking about buying him, you should have already, because he is like the only guy right now who can do any damage output with this awful new setup for the bounty hunt fugitive. Right now, League 8 fugitive is an artifact. He's an artifact hater. It's metal. He's a magic monster. It's an artifact, so you can't apply guard down hater. So he does self-buffing attacks. He's a really great counter to the current League 8 fugitive, but that's it. And I'm worried that he'll lose his viability after. But after that, he is a cold blood trait attacker. Cold blood trait is one of the most OP things. So he'll have viability for a long time. I honestly think he's pretty worth it to buy, but you can't rank him up because there's no rank up survival dungeon. So unless you could buy him rank 5, he's still pretty bad. So I wouldn't suggest it, but pretty great. No, not great, but great for me lineup because I didn't have most of these guys and I'm a collector. Hope you have fun this bounty hunt. It is okay. That sounds kind of like sad because this is one of the really bad bounty hunts. All the fugitives are really hard. So try to have fun. Definitely get every single monster that you can. That is always my suggestion. Make sure you get everyone. But the fact is, it's impossible to get bounty. It's impossible to get Abyssal Era monsters ranked up. So it is the most important that you get every single monster. Then you get this guy ranked up. Because the rest of these guys, if you want to rank up Enhancer, if you want to rank up Sparkus, you can just go to the rank up survival dungeon. Larunion is the only one where you can exclusively only get his cells here, so definitely get him ranked up right now. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found it helpful. I've been meaning to get this out. I'm sorry it's so late, but at least I got it out to you guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, if you found it helpful, leave a like to support the video. Leave a comment, the Omni-Crab returns or something. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the comments down below. Who are you going to get first? Who do you like most? Who did you not have? Leave anything. I love to hear your thoughts. I love to hear how it's going. And subscribe to join the Crab Army. We are at 200 subscribers, and we're only going up. Thank you all so much for this milestone. And now that my voice has returned to me, we're only going to be going up. So thank you so much for this massive milestone and joining the Crab Army. I'll see you in the next one. Your favorite Omnious Crab, signing out.